So I'm here today with Lee. Lee's joined us from NICE Actimize. Lee, what's your job title? What do you do at NICE Actimize?
Hi, I'm the general manager for our compliance line of business, which includes everything related to trade conversations and trade transactions at financial institutions. So there's everything from voice recording to Teams capture to surveillance of those communications and surveillance of the actual trades that traders perform.
Moving swiftly on, can you tell me a little bit about how you come up with solutions and services for your customers when you're looking at surveillance? Do you go into their homes? Do you sit with them? Do you more just talk to them on the phone? How do you come up with the concepts?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a famous saying in this space about the answers are very rarely inside the building. And so we really do need to meet with customers to understand what their problems are. Today, of course, it's virtual. We're looking forward to be able to do that in person again. But it's really understanding the problems that they're facing, the challenges they have, and then from that, determining really comprehensive, interesting solutions that can add value in the market. There's other sources, of course. When we look at regulations, as an example, that's a huge driver of what we do. And we understand the regulations, we dive in, and then we develop solutions for that. And then another interesting source is the media. If you see, for example, that there's a firm fined recently, for example, just big deal in the news, AML fine for Westpac in Australia. And so you can see those kind of fines, and that's a driver of, there's obviously a problem here. What can my team do to help our customers avoid those kind of fines and reputational damage?
We watch the regulators quite a lot here at Disruption Banking, and there's been quite a few fines actually the last few weeks. It's been a bit of a difficult time for banks, I think. But there's also something called the FCA's Senior Managers and Certification Regime, which I understand that you adhere to and you work with to help the regulators, to help companies be able to be compliant with the regulators. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with the regulators, how you keep on top of it, and how you're able to use their regulations to help customers?
Okay. Very good. I'll start with a general discussion on the regulator and then come specifically to SM&CR. So we have a team that works with the regulators to understand what they are thinking, how they're thinking about the regulations, how they're planning to evolve the regulations. We often actually contribute and provide feedback to draft regulations. And by doing this, we get a jump start on what's coming, and we start building solutions up front in advance to help customers quickly comply. In the case of SM&CR, this is actually consistent with an overall global theme around suitability and conduct. And so the concept here, I think people are familiar, but with SM&CR, senior managers are now personally responsible, and they could be actually fined and go to jail if they're not having good controls in place over what their employees are doing and trying to avoid various behavioral and risk scenarios. So it's really a conduct related solution. So what we've done is we've expanded a lot of the solutions we already have in the market, including our leading communication surveillance solution. And we're looking at new and interesting types of risk. A lot of that relies on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and NLP to identify potential issues, highlight those for senior managers who can then proactively address them.
Okay, so moving on quite quickly, obviously working with companies who sit in this sector, I understand that you're exposed to companies like Charles River, BlackRock, State Street, and other big players in the ETF and other markets. Can you tell us how you're able to work with them, how you integrate with them? How does that look?
Yeah, it's a great question. Everything we do relies on data. In the case of Charles River or BlackRock, these are the systems that control or manage all of the trades, the orders and executions. And that's critically important data that we need in order to be able to analyze whether there's any market abuse. And the additional data we need are things, in this scenario, are things like market data. So for example, if you bought Tesla at pick a price, $500, but it was actually trading at $300, there's something interesting going on that we need to look at. Simple example. But we need that trade data. And what we do is we partner with a lot of these order management systems and collect the data directly. We can connect it over FIX. We can do a flat file, export, import. All these systems have the ability to export the trade data because they need to go to accounting systems anyway. So we collect that data, we map it, and then we run our analytics, both our our rule-based analytics and also our machine learning-based anomaly detection analytics.
So when we're talking about machine learning, I know that you're very heavily involved in natural language processing. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about how you use those systems, because it's obviously very important that you work with the data, but I think natural language processing is a little bit more to do with the voice. Perhaps you can tell us more about that.
Yeah. In the same spirit of collecting data from the trading systems, we're also collecting communications data from a number of sources. NICE already has a lion's share of the market on the voice recording, voice capture, and more recently unified communications teams as an example for voice, for video, chat. We capture all these communications, and then what we're doing is we're using natural language processing in some very interesting ways. On the speech side, it really helps for accuracy of transcription from speech to text. We're well over 90% now accuracy. And interestingly, a couple of years ago, firms would say, oh, we can't use speech to text until it's 70% accuracy. And that we're now at 90. So there's no reason firms can't now adopt. And the advantage of this, by the way, is instead of having somebody have to listen to the calls and take notes, we're automatically able to surveil the text. And that's the next transition. In the traditional listen to voice approach, maybe 2% of the calls could be reviewed. With the automated approach, we can get 100% coverage, really reducing risk and improving efficiency. Where NLP comes in, one, it provides much more accurate transcriptions because the computer can tell if the transcription makes sense and adjust and provide the recommended, the most certain example of what it thinks that the transcription should be. Secondly, we're using this for the surveillance itself, and it's much, much more accurate than a traditional lexicon or keyword search type solution. In fact, we're seeing 98% reduction in false positives when we're using NLP versus a traditional lexicon approach. And an example was there are things like synonyms, lemmatization. So the things like instead of talk, it could be on a synonym side, it could be not just talk, it could be speak, it could be all kinds of different lingo that's used in trading. On the lemmatization.
Go on, tell us a couple of these colloquialisms that these traders use then while you're there.
Yeah. No. Well, we've actually, the interesting thing is we actually found some misbehavior by people using code words that stood out. And so baby bears is an example of one that came up. But you can also say, let's get a coffee. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of things that may seem innocent, but when looked at in the spirit of is this expression usual or unusual, we've identified some real bad behavior for our clients, or they've identified it using our tools. So it's the NLP is functionally in use today, and it's really producing significant benefits.
Super. And tell me, how do you work to keep up with all of these changing environments and all of the changing trading environments? Because as we spoke earlier, we've got a lot of retail investors coming into the market in some jurisdictions, especially in America recently. Other countries as well in Southeast Asia are adopting more retail investors as well. How is your business keeping up to date with the change in the landscape?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One is the analytics, the models that we run to detect potential bad behavior. There's different models on the retail side versus the commercial side or capital markets. And so we have additional solutions. And so we have, for example, on the retail side, one of the big pushes in the US was a SEC regulation best interest, which came out just last June or a year ago, June. And that may have been in response to things like the Wells Fargo incident where they were fined multiple billions for account churning and creating accounts to generate fees. We've then adapted our solutions to look for behavior around in that sense where an advisor might be manipulating a customer. And really the point of Reg BI is making sure that the advice that's given is appropriate. And so we already had solutions there, but we then quickly adapt and create new models. We further integrated communications into the trading models. And so there's some really interesting solutions which will help protect both the financial institutions and their end customers. So we can very quickly adapt and based on the changes in the regulatory environment. Back to the earlier point, we're trying to get ahead of that though. We talk to regulators, get advance notice, and so we can launch solutions almost concurrently, if not just right after a regulation is finalized.
How is the impact of the growing amount of algo trading businesses impacting your future?
Yeah, so certainly we're seeing a shift, continued shift more towards electronic trading and then more towards automated trading. And the impact is just the different algorithms, different, not in this case, different analytics to analyze the behavior. And when a person's trading voice versus trading electronic versus algo, there are subtleties in the models. And so we adjust those models. Other differences are trading volumes. And so the tuning of the alerts are different based on the type of trading that takes place. And so it's really important for a system like ours to be able to very quickly adjust and tune different thresholds to meet the different analytic requirements. So
where's the best place for our audience to find out more about NICE's Actimize's product portfolio here?
Yeah, I mean, the website's always a great place to start. You can reach out. We have LinkedIn pages. We have lots of different places where you can reach out. You can just Google NICE Actimize, and you'll find all kinds of information. And you'll see that we've won a whole slew of awards in the last couple of years, how we're showing leadership in the space. So plenty of places to go. Glad to help.
Super. And hopefully we'll see you at events as well soon once this COVID era has ended.
That's right. It will be nice to get back to meeting people in person. For sure.
Exactly. Thank you very much for your time, Lee. It's been a really, really interesting interview. It's been great finding out a little bit more about surveillance technology. So hopefully we'll hear more from you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.